Salofalava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susanna Suisuiki. Coming up, Fiji politics heats up with high-profile resignations. Also,
I was trying to find some history of Pacific people. There's hardly anything.
Pacific artists embrace their cultural roots, and the Tonga Samoa clash has seen a hit song make a comeback on TikTok. But first, a former Tonga political advisor says the government must address the lack of clarity between the country's executive branch and the royal family in decision-making. Tongans head to the polls for the general election on November 20th. Lopeti Sinituli says Crown Prince Tupouto'a Ulukalala's position as Minister in charge of Foreign Affairs and Armed Forces has thrust the country's power-sharing mechanisms into the spotlight.
Ministry of Diplomatic Affairs and Ministry of His Majesty's Armed Forces, that is the Defence Forces, is a cut above the rest of the cabinet portfolios. We have, in fact, a two-tier level of political power.
Mr. Senituli says King Tupou VI's support for Dr. Aisake Eke is a significant departure from the 2021 political landscape when the monarch didn't have a clear favourite.
Winning his electorate is guaranteed, in my view. But whether or not he can pull together a cabinet made up of 12 supporters from the 9 members of the nobility and the 16 people's reps is another matter.
Prior to his accession to the throne, King Tupou VI also held the Foreign Affairs and Armed Forces portfolios as a member of government, similar to his son, the Crown Prince. A Fijian academic is warning of further political turmoil in Fiji after the resignation of 2 of the country's 3 deputy prime ministers within a week. Manua Kamikamida and Biman Prasad are now on the backbenches after stepping down in the face of corruption charges. Koroi Hawkins reports.
You could almost be forgiven for lapsing into a moment of political deja vu with these words from Fiji Prime Minister Sitiveni Rabuka.
Today I received the Honorable Biman Prasad's formal notification of his resignation from Cabinet and as Deputy Prime Minister. He will remain a member of Parliament and caucus. His resignation follows the formal charges being laid against him by the Fiji Independent Commission Against Corruption.
Biman Prasad also resigned his finance portfolio. Canterbury University's Pro-Vice-Chancellor Pacific, Stephen Ratuva, says Mr. Kamikamida and Mr. Prasad are the latest casualties in the fallout over FICAC's ongoing saga around the appointment of its former commissioner, Barbara Malimali.
In fact, the entire state system is in a state of flux at the moment, and they're interconnected in different ways, which links up the president, the chief justice, the government, and the judiciary.
Meanwhile, Biman Prasad says he intends to deal with corruption charges against him in the shortest possible time. He told Fiji Village he remains focused on improving the prosperity and life outcomes of Fijian people.
This is a temporary setback. I came into politics to save our people. That remains my mission.
To fill the empty portfolios of his former deputies, Sitiveni Rabuka is leaning on an MP from his own party.
I've also decided to appoint the Honorable Ashram Emmanuel, who is currently Assistant Minister of Finance as Cabinet Minister, and to take over some of the financial portfolios and commerce portfolios left by the 2 honourable ministers who have resigned.
With so much political instability in Suva, Professor Stephen Ratuva says next year's general election will be at the forefront of voters' minds.
And politicians as well are aware of that, and they're trying their best to look good in the eyes of the public, particularly now with the social media, which is quite dominant, and with more than 10 political parties now ready to fight for the election next year. You're going to see a lot of movements from one political party to another.
The full 4-year term of the current Parliament concludes in December next year, but the Constitution says Parliament can be dissolved at any time after 3.5 years by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister. This means the national general election can be called anytime from the end of June next year.
For many New Zealand-born Pasifika people, connecting to their cultural identities is a challenge. At this month's Auckland Heritage Festival, Pacific artists were invited to share their experiences. Tiana Haxton spoke with two of them and filed this story.
At Avondale Library, New Zealand-born Niuean, Samoan and Tongan Jess Atutolu Tulisi guided a small group through a traditional Niuean weaving workshop. The librarian says learning traditional crafts is how she is connected to her cultural identities.
For me, because I'm New Zealand-born, it's been really hard for me to learn the language. So growing up, I've always been so big about learning all three of my cultures through the arts.
Atutolu Tulisi says she's fluent in the crafts of her ancestors, even if she's still learning the words of their language.
I found that knowing the language is good for our identity, but I also think knowing the art is another way, because you could be someone who can speak full Niuean, but they can't make a bag as nice as I do.
She says it's powerful seeing Pacific arts and crafts feature proudly across Auckland's Heritage Festival. Another Pacifica exhibitor, Sophie Pua, agrees, saying having their stories represented in a major city event is long overdue.
So if you look at their booklets and their website, the majority of it is European history. But for me, if I was trying to find some history of Pacific people, there's hardly anything. I love the history of Aotearoa, but as a young child, I was questioning, where is ours? Where is our story as Pacific people?
Across town, Sophie Pua and his brothers were telling their story through an art exhibition called Soka Samoa Stories. Their showcase reflected on family, faith and football. It told the story of their childhood and how the brothers found themselves battling stereotypes when they chose to play soccer instead of rugby.
You're talking 1970s, rugby and rugby league is the main game for Pacific men, and we decided to go play soccer. And so with that, bit of a harassment and bullying by our local who played that and not being a real man, and also the experiences of the racism that was within that sport.
While shining the light on how they defied racial stereotypes, Pua says the exhibition showed younger ones they could unapologetically be themselves. He says 5 generations of his family turned up to support the showcase.
The sub-theme for us was You Be You, which was our way of saying to the next generations, it's okay you being yourself. And so if you're not into sports, that's all right. If you want to dance, if you want to be a spoken word or whatever, that's fine, as long as you are being yourself.
For both exhibitors, being a part of the Auckland Heritage Festival is about more than sharing stories. They say it's about making sure Pacifica identities are celebrated as part of New Zealand's history too.
Time now for our socials wrap. Here with me is our digital journalist, Coco Lance. Kia ora, Coco. We're kicking things off this week with a bit of Gava controversy from a podcast.
Talofa, Sana. Yeah, so this one's really got people talking. So the host of the Pacific Empowerment podcast, Akanesi Kaufase, has been diving deep into the culture and consumption of Gava lately, and she opened one of her recent clips with this line: "Alcohol kills loudly, drugs kill violently, but Gava kills slowly. It was used for respect and unity, but what was once sacred has become a nightly escape."
Okay, so basically she's calling out Gava addiction among Pacific men and how it's quietly impacting families.
Yeah, exactly. So she talks about what she calls the excuse of absence. So dads coming home late, missing time with kids, being too tired for mahi the next day, and online people obviously have a lot to say about this.
Yeah, it sounds like something that isn't talked about enough, right?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the root of I guess the topic of conversation. You know, women have shared their own stories too, with the podcast of partners drifting away, homes going quiet. Others have also pushed back though, saying, you know, Gava is being unfairly blamed for deeper social problems, and Gava has always been something that is largely enjoyed in moderation as a source, of community and culture and reconnection. So I guess highlighting that we shouldn't be jumping on any sort of bandwagon, shaming our people for something traditional like Gava.
Now from Gava to classrooms, there's been another online debate this week looking at whether Fijian schools should bring back corporal punishment.
Yes, so a big one. The Fijian Teachers Association is calling for the return of smacking, saying teachers have supposedly lost control and respect in the classroom. So Paula Manumanu Netonga, the FTA's General Secretary, said if they were to lay a belt on the table, students wouldn't make a noise, and those comments in particular have really blown up online.
Many are saying discipline's gone out the window. Others, though, are firing back, saying violence is never the answer and we can't be legitimising abuse.
Getting hit with a hose pipe or a wooden stick is not something we would like to relive. And it did make us fear those that we were learning from.
Yeah, and other advocates have chimed in, like Matthew Naluvakandoa, who says this isn't about respect, it's about support. So we've got so many overworked teachers, so many stressed parents, and also not enough mental health help in schools either. And Fiji's own constitution, plus the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, actually ban corporal punishment. So it's not just a cultural issue, really, it's a legal one as well.
All right, let's end on something a bit more cheerful. The Toa Samoa and Mate Maatonga match at Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane. That was the game that many Pacifica fans looked forward to, and there was so much friendly banter online between the Samoan and Tongans from that game.
Yeah, I think Bruno Mars is probably wondering why his song Versace on the Floor has taken off again. But on game day, there was over, I believe, 44,000 fans who packed that stadium, which I think was electric. It was electric to watch. And after a lightning delay, Samoa absolutely smashed Tonga 34-6 to book their spot in the final.
Taulagi stays alive. Here we go, Aristobina.
And then I don't know about you, I don't know about others, but my social feed became nothing but flags, celebrations, overall just kind of some good old Pacific pride.
It was a bit of a letdown, though, with 23 arrests in Auckland following that match.
Yeah, I agree. But I also think, it didn't take away the spirit of the celebration. And as many had said online, we need to focus on that positive majority, not that rowdy minority, essentially.
Exactly. And with Tonga set to face the Kiwis at Eden Park this Sunday, we know they'll bring back the Red Sea and the Mawhana vibes. And that's our socials wrap. Thank you, Coco Lance. Coco Lance, our digital journalist at RNZ Pacific.
Thanks, Anna.
That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā, soifua.